Hello, today there will be an exciting debate on two insects. My name is Annie and I will be discussing and defending the cochineal scale, which is scientifically known as Dactylopius coccus.
Hi, my name is Mahir, and I'll be defending the silk moth, which is scientifically known as Bombyx mori.
The topic of this debate is whether the cochineal scale or the silk moth has changed history more. Both of these insects have affected trade, culture, and economies around the world. However, which insect has made the bigger impact? We will be discussing each insect in the upcoming debate. Now let us get started. So first, let me introduce the cochineal scale or the Dactylopius coccus. The cochineal scale is an insect native to the Americas, specifically in places where it can thrive on cacti species. The cacti serve as host plants where the cochineal scale can feed, grow, and reproduce. The cochineal scale has carminic acid in its hemolymph and eggs, and this pigment helps the insect protect itself against predators. Behaviorally, cochineal scales rely entirely on their host cacti. They use specialized mouth parts to feed on and extract the juices from the cactus. These insects prefer to settle in the crevices of the cacti for better protection. So how's the cochineal scale affected us? Well, historically, the Native Americans of South America used the cochineal scale for dye. However, the main historical use of the cochineal scale was dye for the textile industry. The cochineal allowed for production of a crimson color and a scarlet color. After Spanish conquest, Spain transformed the harvest of cochineal scales into a valuable industry. It would become Spain's most valuable export from the Americas. By far, one of the most unique characteristics of the cochineal scale is its relationship with cacti. Without a host plant, the cochineal scale would be unable to survive and reproduce. Another unique characteristic is definitely its ability to synthesize carminic acid, which serves first as a chemical defense against predators. As for why this matters for humans, the red color of carminic acid has allowed for the insect to impact human economics and history.
Now it's my turn to introduce my insect. The silk moth is an insect species that is native to China, but it has been domesticated all over the world. This species has actually undergone complete domestication, which means it is impossible to find it in the wild. As time has gone by, the silk moth has lost its color, which prevents it from using its camouflage to protect it from predators. Their wings have also lost the ability to fly, and their mouth parts are also absent, which prevents them from eating. With all these biological disadvantages going against them, that begs the question, how are the silk moths not extinct? The simple reasoning for why they are not extinct is that we as humans are preventing that from happening. When the silk moth is undergoing the larval stage, they produce cocoons that are made up of silk fibers. These silk fibers are the reason we are protecting the silk moth, and it goes back thousands of years. The discovery of these silk fibers was said to have been discovered in 2640 BC by a Chinese empress. This alone shows how far back the insect has impacted human society. The Chinese kept the secret of how the silk moth produced their silk fibers for well over 1,000 years. By keeping silk moths a secret, China built one of the greatest trade monopolies of all time. They would sell to wealthy Europeans and Middle Easterns who wanted silk. This demand for silk created one of the best trade routes called the Silk Road. The Silk Road was a network of routes used by traders whose primary product being traded was silk. The Silk Road led to the exchange of culture, religion, and ideas from people all across Asia and Europe. It also led to devastating tragedies like the spread of the Black Plague, and all of these events across history were the product of silk moths producing silk fibers.
Well, while I do agree that the silk moth has played a huge role in trade history, I believe that the cochineal scale has had an equal, if not greater, impact on economics around the world. As you mentioned, silk was monopolized by China for centuries. Cochineal dye, on the other hand, became a global product after the Spanish introduced the dye to Europe. Demand for this beautiful red pigment was present in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. It was used in textiles, paintings, cosmetics, and even royal garments. Cochineal scales were therefore able to impact international trade and improve the economy of the Spanish Empire. Additionally, you mentioned how the silk moth has become dependent on human intervention for survival. Sure, this proves that silk moths and humans have an established relationship, but it also shows how cochineal insects have an advantage in terms of production efficiency. Cochineal scales can thrive in both man-made farms and in nature. The host plants of the cochineal scales are highly resilient cacti, and this means that cochineal dye production is more sustainable than silk. Silk surely requires more intensive labor, so I will agree that the silk moth has changed global trade. However, I think that the cochineal scale is versatile and sustainable, so it has an advantage over the silk moth.
You do bring up some great points. However, I do disagree that the cochineal scale played a greater role in economics. The silk moth created a product that was just as desirable as the dye produced by the cochineal scales. In fact, the Chinese Empire desired the protection of silk so much that they instituted that the penalty for disclosing the secret would be death. China was one of the wealthiest empires for centuries because of the gold mine that silk trading was. Silk was known to be a prestige item that only the elites or the very wealthy would use in their clothing. I also wanted to add that the silk moth was a major proponent in changing history in all aspects of the world. The use of silk moths to obtain silk fibers created a chain reaction in culture, trade, religion, and disease. For example, China was one of the most important silk manufacturers for centuries, but then India, Japan, and Turkey all discovered the secret of producing silk. This led to the Turks closing off the overland routes to Asia, leaving the Europeans in need of a different source of silk. The Europeans would eventually send Columbus off to the New World in search of silk, and the rest was history. The main point I'm trying to make is that the impact of silk across history was far greater than the cochineal scale, especially since the red coloring materials from cochineal have been almost completely replaced in the textile industry present day.
Again, you make some valuable points about the silk moth. Still, I must argue that the cochineal skill has had an equally significant impact. Silk may have been a prestigious commodity, but this actually shows how cochineal skill had had an effect on different levels of human society. Since silk was associated with the elite, many individuals throughout history have been unable to reap the benefits of the silk moth. On the other hand, cochineal dye has been used for both luxury items and in everyday goods. Cochineal scales produce a vibrant red color, and this color is unmatched by any other natural dye. The cochineal dye has been used in royal garments and in paintings by influential artists such as Rembrandt. Another notable use of the dye was to produce the notable British red coats. This shows that the cochineal scale has deeply influenced European art and culture. The red color from the cochineal scale has become an important symbol for wealth and beauty. Additionally, you mentioned how the cochineal business has lost its relevance in the current times. While this is true to an extent due to the low cost of synthetic dyes, cochineal dye has also made a comeback in recent years. Synthetic dyes can be harmful, so the cochineal scale has continued to contribute dyes for different types of foods. The dyes have been used in pharmaceutical drugs and food products such as smoothies and ice cream. Clearly, the beautiful red color produced by the cochineal scale is irreplaceable. Human society has clearly been impacted by this dye through its cultural relevance.
You make a good point on how the cochineal scale impacted both the everyday people and the wealthy people of the past. However, I would like to argue that the silk produced by the silk moth had more of an impact on history than an impact on people. While an impact on the people is important and beneficial to society, the impact on history highlights the legacy that something creates. The silk moth impacted history in a more significant way because it created more events, transactions, and because it will always be known to produce the hot commodity of silk. I do agree that the British redcoats are iconic, but I would argue that the uniforms themselves did not change history. I believe that actions impact history. The uniforms that contain the red dye that the cochineal scales produced did not impact the British regime. However, I would say the silk fibers that the silk moth produced directly impacted the way the Chinese Empire was able to maintain control for so long. I would argue that that was produced by the silk moth impacted the market and gave rise to more products like cotton, tobacco, and sugar.
Well, throughout this entire debate, I've demonstrated the significance of the cochineal scale in human history. This small insect has affected global trade because it served as a source of carminic acid, which is a highly valuable natural red dye. From its role in Native American culture to its role in the Spanish economy, and to its continued use for products today, the cochineal scale has remained a valuable insect for human industry. Beyond its economic importance, the cochineal scale is also significant because it is a subject for current research. Scientists are still exploring how the insect's potential can be maximized for natural dye production, how the insect ecologically affects its host plants, and how the insect can be used in biomedical research for the non-toxic nature of its acid. By understanding the biology of the cochineal scale, scientists and entomologists are able to develop better sustainable agricultural practices that harm insects less. Ultimately, the cochineal scale's impact on trade, art, and industry makes it a valuable creature for study and preservation. The cochineal scale is evidently influential in human society and it will continue being so.
This has been a very lively debate, and I think that we both made some stellar arguments. However, I will stand by my view that the silk moth has changed history more than the cochineal scales. Through the course of history, the silk moth has made a significant impact on the economy, trade routes, and culture all across the world. From the Silk Road to the discovery of the New World, and to even the thriving of the Chinese Empire for generations, it has impacted the world as we know today. The silk moth is mainly known for producing silk fibers, but the reason why it's so significant is because it gave rise to other products as well. Since every other country is wanting to trade with China, they needed to produce something that was worth trading for it. This led to a mass production of cotton, tobacco, and sugar on a global scale. Although the historical impact is very important, it is worth noting that the silk moth has become a very major talking point in research today. The biological characteristics of the silk moth has made it become a model organism for scientists when conducting research. They have particularly become useful in life science research. The application of silk moths has emerged greatly in its use in drug screening and discovery. The silk moth has become an organism that is extremely important to study. It has changed history in such a significant way and relies solely on humans to survive. It's up to us to continue looking after the species, and maybe it can change the future as significantly as it has changed the past.
Thank you.